I jumped at it. I thought it was interesting. I mean, I'd already been doing something very similar at the time, and it just opened up for me. I, went after it, and yeah, that's where the journey started at Mono. But yes, that's just a very high-level brief of my journey so far in tech sales. Yeah, thank you, Dara.
All right, thank you very much, Bridget. That's interesting. So, on to the first question, right? What skills do you look for in candidates who are applying for tech sales role? Given your experience. So say people want to come in today from the experience you've had, what are the things you look out for in the application, say on their CV specifically? What are the things that get your attention?
All right. So yeah, depending on how the application is being collated or being done, the CV might just be requested or required. The LinkedIn profile might be required. A cover letter might be required, or even questions, right? Just to gauge the candidates during the application process. But the very first thing would be good communication, and this would be in written format because, of course, you've not gotten the chance to speak with them. So you're definitely, and hiring manager is definitely looking for very good command of English in written format, ensuring that this person can actually write well, free of grammatical errors, spelling mistakes, being able to convey their thoughts in a very concise and clear manner. Also, yeah, just effective communication. So that's the very first thing. Of course, if you see grammatical errors, for example, it's going to be a first turn off, regardless of whatever experience or skills they've racked up on their CV, because you don't want somebody that is engaging with your customers, your clients in that fashion. So that's the very first. Another would be some products or industry knowledge, right? Even if you do not have exact tech sales experience, but just showing that whatever role you're in, could have some skills that can transition or transcend into tech sales. Say, for example, someone that does customer success or customer service, you already speak with clients because tech sales it's majorly on speaking with people. You already speak with clients, you already communicate with them. So showing that you have some industry product knowledge would also help. Another thing to look out for is enthusiasm and interest. So this might not be gotten from a CV, for example, but if there were going to be like a cover letter collected as part of the interview or application process, you can gauge or glean some insight into how enthusiastic that candidate is and how much interest they are in the role. So these are like some of the things that top of my mind I would look out for in a candidate.
All right, thank you. That was very clear. So I think one thing that you mentioned that stood out for me was the aspect of transferable skills. It's always good to highlight. So say you're in customer success, for instance, like Bridget said, right? It's always good to highlight the skills you can transfer from what you currently do, even if you're an entrepreneur as well. They're transferable skills that you could replicate in sales. So highlighting those things definitely will put you or give you some level of advantage. Um, from your experience, Bridget, what application method is most effective, or have you noticed has been most effective for hiring candidates? So is it based on referrals? Do you really have to hire based on referrals and recommendations, or are direct applications the way to go for you?
All right, thanks, Dara. So referrals recommendations are always great. In fact, hiring managers always like people being referred to them because it just cuts some steps in your hiring process. So yeah, if a role is opened up, the first thing an hiring manager might typically do is just to share within their network, or I'm looking for a sales associate, for example. Do you have somebody that can fit this role? These are the requirements. This is what the job looks like. Send me people, send me referrals. So yes, hiring managers would typically prefer referrals. However, right, many jobs are filled from direct application. So this is not to discourage anybody. If you see a role, put your best foot forward, right, in your application, however it is, and definitely you can get it. So yes, I would say that people generally would like referrals just so that the process is much more easier for them. But yes, direct applications also gets they also get into the door. So don't be discouraged. Yeah.
All right, great, great. So, like Bridget has said, let's factor those two things in. It's not just one way that leads to the market. I mean, how do Yoruba people say it? On a call or boja, abi or waja. It's just not one direction. So it could be the same way you apply tons of times, right? People apply via the link and they actually people apply via the link and they actually do not get they do not get any response or anything. So don't limit yourself by just applying via the link. Go the extra mile to reach out to a hiring manager, reach out to people within the company, ask for referrals, ask for recommendations. Because, like she said, the first thing hiring managers do when there's a role out there is reaching out to the team, reaching out to the network, their network, to find out if there are people that can be referred to them for that role. So, on to the next question. What's your best advice for candidates who are applying for tech sales roles, right? What tips can they get to fine tune the application? An application in this sense, we're currently focused on the CV aspect of it before we move to interviews.
All right. Thank you, Dara. So the very first thing I would say is research, right? Research. So I want to assume that you're already interested in that line of role. Say, for example, B2B tech sales, right? You're already interested in that kind of role. So if you find an open position, the first thing you do is to research the company, right? Find out everything you need to know about that company. Um, Read on their mission, read on what they've done in the past, the recent product releases they've done, read on their founders. Just read and research as much as you can, more than just the surface level. Also, tweak your CV, right? Like we had mentioned before, there are definitely transferable skills from what you're doing right now if you're moving into a entirely new role, into what you want to do. So ensure that those skills are highlighted, ensure that it is put such that the hiring manager can see it quickly and can, think you're great for that role. So yes, research, also highlighting those skills, those particular skills on your CV that can be transferable into that role, such that it is visible to them, they think you're interesting, and they can move further, maybe asking you to come for an interview or sending you some assessment questions, whichever it is. If it's just your CV, those two things work. Another thing is you might want to put your LinkedIn URL on your CV such that beyond just what they can see there, they can also go to LinkedIn and see more about you. So if you're someone that you're moving into the tech sales space, for example, if you've been posting articles, posting notes, commenting on stuff, once they're redirected to your LinkedIn, they can view all of that, and that can just give you a higher chance of them being interested in you. So yes, for your CV, those are just some tips that can help.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bridget. I think you've answered part of the question I was going to ask next, which was related to LinkedIn URL, right? So you've mentioned that you you check people's LinkedIn. What are things that stand out to you when you check the LinkedIn? What are some of the first things you notice that keep you on that person's LinkedIn? What are some of the first things you notice that just makes you feel like this might be a waste of my time. This might not be worth digging into.
Okay, thanks, Dara. So once you open up a person's LinkedIn, the first thing that will jump up at you is one, their tagline, and two, their profile picture, right? Yes, the profile picture actually matters. So the tagline has to be curated properly. Let it be Let it be what you do. Say, for example, B2B tech sales, customer success, whatever it is, let that be the first thing that is jumping at the person. And also you can impute specific industries, right? Maybe fintech, the fintech space, health tech, edutech, or whatever it is, just imputing all of that information on the tagline. Another thing can be the profile picture, right? Ensure that your profile picture is showing you clearly and also showing that you are exuding some confidence, right? Even if it's just a picture, even if it's just it matters. It can create like a mental impression on that person, in which they can judge your character or whatever it is you are. Another thing can be your summary. Ensure that you have a very good summary on your LinkedIn. So LinkedIn provides a space where you can just write a quick summary about yourself. So ensure that you concisely write what you do, the industry you play in, your experience so far, just in a very good way. There are so many tools, so many tips you can find online on creating a very concise summary. Ensure that that is well spelled out. So yes, those are the first three things that we typically jump at a person, especially an hiring manager, once they open up your LinkedIn profile, and you should actually pay attention to.
All right, great. So let's digress a bit, right? You mentioned summary. When it comes to people summary on LinkedIn, do you notice when people use ChatGPT, right? And is that like a thing of concern? Does it really stand out to you when you just know this person is using ChatGPT? You know, is it is it something to make you like just want to put off the search or the resume?
All right. So I would definitely encourage people to use technology tools that can make their work or life easier. However, don't use it mindlessly, meaning that even if you use ChatGPT, for example, to get a summary for a LinkedIn, still tweak it for it to be more personalized to you and your role and your experience. Don't just pick and dump whatever you find there, because it can somebody can tell that, oh, this is most likely AI generated. So even if you generate from these platforms, ensure that you track it somehow such that it is more customized, more personalized, more human, if I would say. Yeah, yeah.
All right, great. So you've touched on a number of things, right, that are stuck regarding LinkedIn optimization, using the right type taglines, noting the industries you work in, um, updating the summary, making sure that your profile picture stands out. That one might seem, but I think it's really important because it's really emphasized a lot the kind of profile picture that you use. Yes, you've touched on, yeah, a lot of things, so that's really helpful. Let's move on to the interview bit of things, right? What are some interview etiquettes that you've noted that would make you pass? Say, okay, yeah, this person came well prepared, some sort.
Okay, thank you again, Dara. So the first thing is, again, prepare for your interview. Even beyond interviews, you can tell when a person is prepared for a meeting or not, right? By the way they would answer your questions, their countenance, and all of that. So if you're going to be attending an interview, the very first thing you need to put in mind is to prepare as much as you can. Like I mentioned, research on the company. You do not want to go there blind. Research as much as you can. In fact, research enough as if you were a staff, like read every single thing about the company. Of course, that is if you want to get the job. And if you're going to take the effort to apply, you should actually give your best. So research as much as you can. Ensure you get there early. If it's going to be a virtual call, ensure that you are there a minute or two to the time. Not that, it's past the time and the interviewer is waiting for you. That can turn them off. So be there very early. Ensure you look confident. If it's a physical interview, get there early, look confident, dress properly, smile, be friendly, be warm, and also be professional. So yeah, that's it about just starting. Then of course into the interview proper, ensure you listen. So I know that you've prepared potential answers to questions, but ensure you're listening to the actual questions that are being asked. And of course, when you're answering, you're not just answering like a robot, answering mindlessly. You're answering in a way that can relate to your experiences, the role, and even sharing examples, right? What else? Also ask questions. I think I'm answering more than what was initially asked. But yes, some very good etiquette. Get there early. Look confident. Um, yeah, ensure you're prepared. Ensure you're prepared mentally, and you've researched as much as you can about the company and the role.
All right, great, great. So yes, preparation, preparation. It's good to know a lot about the company before going in. Um, it's funny, boy, you'll be shocked. I've heard stories about people going into the company and going into an interview rather, and not doing research, like basic research about the company getting, before getting to the interview session. So it's always good to like do some research beforehand. I remember a time where, oh, this is like, oh yeah, I experienced this month. So I remember a time where um one of the first roles I got, right, I was very guilty of that. So I was so excited and I just went to the interview, this thing. And before, no, a night before, no, it's not that bad. A night before, I checked them out, but I didn't check them in details. So when I went there with so much excitement. And then when I just saw one girl. She just came with all of her papers and her documents. And me, I was like, I didn't come with any documents because I already sent this thing via email. So why am I carrying physical piece of paper? And that's when it now dawned on me that, wait, what do they even do? And there and then I started researching and doing all of that. I got the job kind of, but it was a risk. It was really a risk. So researching helps. I recently interviewed someone who sounded very smart, sounded like someone who was very hardworking, but had done zero research. So when I was asking them, you want to do certain things, you don't even know what you're working on, you don't even know what the company does, you don't even know what you're supposed to be doing, you don't even know, like you haven't done the research too. I think for me that was like a put off to that. Before we go ahead, I want to do something different today. So Titi, I think you mentioned that you experienced something like that last month. Do you mind sharing your experience before we continue?
Yeah, happy to. So we're interviewing for a couple roles, a leadership role, shockingly enough, but like a role that I was hiring for. And then the interview started really good. It was smooth. I was really liking the guy. And then I was like, let's move to the technical bit. So you already know what we do. So walk me through what your plan is going to look like, right? Coming on board as, for this role. And then it went on and it started and it was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I was really busy last night. One thing. I apologize, first I didn't check the website. And I'm like, I've not heard this in a very long time. Like I've been interviewing at least for a while now. I've not heard this in a very. And I really liked the guy because he had the presence, he had the everything, and that just put me off. In fact, it was so disappointing. So it was more like you're getting the rise out of the interview, and then you just deflated the entire balloon, right? So I don't expect that as an applicant, you would have a proper knowledge like people working there, but at least it just makes sense for you to have good knowledge, at least from the website. Yeah, because you're coming in for a very practical role. So how do I know that you know what you're going to do on the job? It was really disappointing because it would have been my it would have been my first choice actually. But yeah,
All right, all right. Thanks for sharing today. To be honest, it happens, right? And I think different people learn at different points, but it's always good to research the company. I think some things that have helped in my experience. If I'm applying for a job, right? First is the website. Read everything that you can read. Like Bridget has said, also go the extra mile to read about the founders, right? If you're applying for a company that produces a consumer product, download their product, try it out. if they produce a B2B product, go through their documentation. If they're an API company, go through the documentation, see what you can make sense of. If you cannot make sense out of anything, book a call with sales and pretend like you want to patronize them. Me, I've done that before. I booked a call with sales just to allow them walk me through their process by themselves. So you know how on a sales call you're selling your product, you open your deck, you're talking about everything. That's what they're doing for me. That's like free pass. Okay, yeah, now I understand better. Thank you very much. So yeah, please go the extra mile to learn. It really stands you out when you're talking to the hiring manager, or probably you're talking to the CEO and you've done your own work. It's very important. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Titi and Bridget. Okay, on to the next question. Let me take you back a bit, Bridget. Can you talk about so call texting, right? When it comes to call texting hiring managers, some hiring managers feel a certain way about it, and some hiring managers are really down. They do not mind. What is your take on cold texting a hiring manager? If you're applying for a role and someone who is interested in the role says, and they know you're the hiring manager, they slid into your LinkedIn DM, send you a cold pitch and their CV, what is your reaction to that? Is that a yes for you? Does that seem too desperate? Does that rub off in a wrong way? Or does that seem like they're actually taking initiative?
All right. So this would really be, like you mentioned, based on preference. For some people, they might see it as the person being intuitive, putting their foot forward, while for some others, they might be like, oh, the role is there, just apply to it and, go through the process. So what I would say on that is, for me personally, I might not mind. Just ensure that whatever reach out you're putting forward is clear. It is really good, right? It's not just, oh, my name is this, I applied to this, I would really love to work for your company. No, go beyond that. Just sell yourself in a very, very intelligent and good way. You might even ask questions, right? Asking intelligent questions. Oh, I saw that you guys did this recently. I was just wondering if how your experience has been so far, or just something in that light, showing that you really have interest. I think that's one thing hiring managers really love, for the candidates to have interest, genuine interest in the company and also the role. This is also something that can stand you out so much in your interview. You having, or you knowing that this candidate is genuinely interested. It's not just a job for them. Well, while it is a job, but they are also very interested in what we do. They are looking forward to it. It's not just one out of 100 applications that they had put out. So yes, you can actually pitch or push yourself to the hiring manager, but ensure that you're not going to shoot yourself in the foot in relation to your messaging. Ensure that it is clear, concise, intelligent, and respectful. So yes, that's what I'll say regarding that.
All right, thanks again, Bridget. So let me ask you the same thing. However, this time around for cover letters. How do you feel about cover letters? Do you think it's a thing that is subjective? Do you think it's an avenue for people to be creative and then express, what they can do or the value they bring? Or do you think it's outdated, so people shouldn't bother?
All right. So personally, I like cover letters, and I'll tell you why. So it's it allows for you to see a lot before you even interact with the candidates via an interview or over a pre-interview call, for example. You can get to gauge their writing skills, like I'd mentioned earlier in the call. You can see how concisely they write. You can see, you just get to gauge how good this person communicating in written form is like, which can be a plus. You also get to gauge some interest, or how much they must have researched or are knowledgeable about the role you're hiring for. So that can give some insights. Beyond cover letters, asking them to write like maybe like a short, I don't want to say essay, but maybe just a short note about something. It just shows you what they can do or how they can think, right? Which can be a pointer to the role that is being hired for. So yeah, a cover letter is outdated, maybe, but it tells me a lot as an hiring manager, and sometimes I would request for it.
All right, great, great. So you mentioned something about candidates being professional during interviews, right? Let's dig into that. So from your perspective, what or what role does clarity, professionalism play when it comes to interviews, and what are things people can do to make them put together, right? Aside, of course, preparing, but what are things people do during the interview sessions that could make them put together for an interview and come off as being professional?
All right. So one thing would be, of course, this would be towards like the tail end of the interview, would be to ask good questions. In fact, while you're researching on the company, on the role, you should have questions come up, questions that are not might not be easily answered by just looking at the website, or just very intelligent questions. Note them down to ask during the interview. That's one. Like I mentioned earlier, you need to listen intently at the questions being asked. Sometimes because you've prepared so much, you already have like prepared answers or robotic answers. No, listen intently, ensure that you're actually answering what is being asked, and also putting it together in a very clear manner. What else? What else? If it's a physical interview or even virtual, of course, if your camera is on, which it should be, you should show, proper posture, good body language, showing that you're interested, right? In fact, you can tell how interested the candidate in is just by the way they speak or just by the way they answer your questions. So ensure that you're confidently answering these questions, you're speaking up, you're showing excitement, enthusiasm. Again, hiring managers want to see that you're very interested in their role. It's not just one out of 200 applications that you've applied to, that you're actually intentional about their particular role. So yes, engaging them confidently, asking questions, good body language, all of these can show professionalism, can show that you're ready and you're the right person for the job.
All right, thank you very much, Bridget. So let's talk about the don'ts. We've talked about a lot of things that people can do to optimize their LinkedIn, to optimize their application. However, what are the don'ts? What are the things people should be mindful of while applying so that they do not ruin their chances of landing their roles?
All right. So for the application stage, I mean, we can pretty much just flip the do's, right? So for your application, ensure that you vet whatever messaging or writing you're putting forward. Your CV, ensure that, of course, I'd mentioned no grammatical errors, no spelling mistakes. Your cover letter, you can use whatever AI tool to review it for you, ensuring that there are no mistakes. You can ask somebody to look over it for you, ensuring that you're not pushing out messaging that is not clear or that is filled with so much errors that will turn off your hiring manager. What else during the application stage? Not having enough information on your CV. Ensure that as much as you can, speak on what you've done in your previous roles. So not just writing the headline and the time period, also state some of your achievements, for example. It doesn't have to be too long, too bulky, because that is another thing that can, of course, turn off hiring managers. Just clear, concise, maybe 3 lines. Oh, I had achieved this, I had done this, I had contributed to this. Very clear, in number format if you can. Just putting all of that very clearly for review. Yeah, so that's the application stage. And of course, the interview stage, ensure, like we had mentioned, you turn up early, do not come late for an interview, be it virtual or physical. Ensure you're there in time. Ensure you show enthusiasm, ensure you're excited, or you show that you're interested, excited about the job, the role. Ensure that during your interview process, you're not speaking negatively about your previous employer, for example. Why did you leave, or why do you want to leave your former role? Oh, I would like to expand my knowledge, my experience, and all of that, not necessarily speaking bad on where you are or where you were in the time past. Yeah, just ensuring you prepare well as well. Please do not go to an interview. This cannot be overly emphasized, unprepared, because it would actually show that you're unprepared, and that would really tank your chances of getting that role. Yes, and also do not go without questions. We've also mentioned it as part of the do's. Ensure you have very good, intelligent questions to ask your hiring manager. So yes, those are just a few things I would say regarding the don'ts during your application and interviewing stage.
All right, thank you very much, Bridget. So another question would be, say a candidate has seen an application, they've applied for the role, they've gotten the interview. Now, how do they follow up with the hiring manager or a recruiter without coming off as being a pest, right?
Mhm.
How could they effectively follow up to show that they're interested in the role, but they're not pestering the hiring manager?
All right. So if time has passed from when they had mentioned they would get back to you, you definitely can follow up. However, very respectful, very professional. Professional is the better word. Send an email. Oh, I had interviewed on this date for this role, and I'm checking to know the update. Has it been filled? Is there any feedback for me at this time? Just send an email, right? Directly to whatever email had given you that feedback. Or perhaps if you have the email address of the hiring manager, send them a direct email. They should respond to you. They should respond to you because they had promised to. So yes, you definitely can follow up. If you do not get a first response, well, you can decide to send another follow-up after some time, or maybe even reach out to the hiring manager on LinkedIn, for example, right? Just bringing it to their attention once more. But typically, or in a normal scenario, feedback should actually be given. But sometimes it doesn't happen that way because for whatever reason within the company or within the hiring process, if it had slipped, yes, you as a candidate, you have every right, you're in good standing to go back to them and ask for feedback because you went through a process. So yes, you deserve to get some feedback.
All right, thank you so much, Bridget. That was very clear. So we'll be taking questions. Get ready, right? Um, you could drop them in the chat box, or you could just raise your hands, and then I would bring you up to speak, and then we take your questions. So we have a question here from Elizabeth. Elizabeth is saying, could you please provide me with some guidance on how to effectively leverage cold mails and persuasive writing to hiring managers? Make my chance of being considered for the job. So I think we've answered, Bridget has answered this to a very large extent. Yeah. During the talk. So Elizabeth, I don't know if Elizabeth is on the call. Elizabeth, you're on the call. Can you confirm your question has been answered? Are you satisfied? Have you gotten the answer during the session, or would you like me to answer you?
No, the one she gave earlier was pretty clear. Yeah, so I'm satisfied with the answer. Thank you very much, Bridget.
All right, great. Does anyone have any questions regarding hiring? Okay, Donald has a question. He said, once received the feedback that while they appreciated my experience, the apprehension with which I answered the questions impacted how I communicated this experience. In line with the confidence during interviews? I think this is a handful, but very intelligent question. Bridget, please over to you.
All right, thank you, Dara. Thank you, Donald. Okay, so I would say that confidence would play a very huge role in your interviewing process. So while some hiring managers would understand that you're probably nervous or anxious because it's an interview process, some people might not, especially if it's a role that would require you to always bring your A game or always look confident or be confident in that role. So what you can do to prepare or to build that confidence rather is preparation, right? Prepare for the interview. If you need to do role plays, maybe get somebody to act as the hiring manager, interview you while you answer. Prepare as much as you can. Take enough time to prepare. That's one thing I would really advise on. What else? Another thing you can do is to speak with or try to reach out to people within that company, right? Just ask them questions about the company, the role. That can also instill some confidence in you as part of preparation towards that interview. But you please do not downplay the role of preparing for that interview. In fact, what you can do is to write out possible or potential questions, also write out like answers and practice it, like rehearse many times over and again. Get somebody to rehearse and practice with you. And of course, you can, with time, hopefully you build that confidence. Of course, take deep breaths. If you need to, if a question is being asked and in that moment you do not know what to say, you can ask them to maybe repeat it or further expatiate on it so that it can give you some time to put your thoughts together, right? So that you're more confident in answering. So yes, there are also like many other tips you can maybe learn online on how to build that confidence. Speak with people as much as you can. That can also help you in building that confidence. Every time you get the chance to engage with people, engage them, speak with them, and over time you would notice that your confidence level is increasing. So yes, I wish you success, Donald.
All right, great. Donald, I hope you found that helpful. One thing that really stuck out was actually having mock interview sessions. So you could practice, if you don't have someone to practice it, practice in front of your mirror, practice with yourself. But it's better when you practice with someone, because if you are uncomfortable, like it would really show. It would really, there's this thing about practicing with people when you're not comfortable doing it, like normally. And the fact that it's like building a muscle. The fact that you're doing that with someone, even in that moment, you will be uncomfortable. And the more you do that, again, it's like building a muscle. The more you build confidence, slowly, surely, gradually. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, Bridget. Okay, let me take you back a bit, right? Talking about making a lasting impression with your cover letters or your outreach to hiring managers, whether you decide to send a cold pitch. Would you say creativity over professionalism, or professionalism over creativity, or a right balance of both? Because some people try to look cool and they want you to know that, they're cool, they're chill. So they try to put all of that in the message that they're sending to you. So is it professionalism over that, or, creativity over that?
All right. So I would say it really depends on the role you're hiring for. If it is B2B tech sales, for example, professionalism might triumph over creativity because when you come into the role, what you're doing is you're speaking with C-level executives mostly of businesses that you're trying to sell to. Well, that depends on what you're selling, but in many cases, or in most cases, you're speaking with top level professionals, right? And what the impression you want to give your hiring manager is that you are also a professional. You know how to engage professionally. So in as much as you might want to be creative, yeah, ensure that it is very professional, because the goal of B2B sales is to gain clients, to gain businesses, and in the business world, professionalism actually matters. It matters. It is too important. So yes, you want to project yourself as a professional as well. So yes.
All right, great. So let's talk a bit about personalizing applications, right? Especially from the CV perspective, how can people, or how best would you advise people to personalize their CVs to the jobs? Is it how important is it for them to check the JD? Is it a must? Do you have to read the JD before submitting your CV, reviewing your CV to that JD, or is it something you could overlook as a candidate?
All right. So it is quite important to, or very important, if you're applying for a role, the first thing you should do is to read the job description. You want to even know what you're in for. Even if it is say for example you've been doing B2B sales and you're looking for another role still within B2B sales, it's also important for you to look at the JD within that company. Oh, how did they even do sales? It might be something different from what you're used to. So you definitely need to read the job description. Then regarding personalizing it into your CV, well, I would advise that because the hiring manager, the person has a lot of CVs to look at least 50. So they want to look for they're looking for CVs that would interest them, right? Things that can actually speak to their role. So if you can take your time to actually tweak the wordings on the CV to show that you can actually do what had been detailed on the JD. So yes, I would subscribe to that. Please, as much as you can. Of course, do not falsify information on your CV, but as much as you can, please tweak so that you can stand out amongst the hundreds of CVs perhaps that the hiring manager needs to go through.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Bridget. So if you have questions, now is the time to ask. Please raise your hands and then we'll call you up to speak. Or you could leave your questions in the chat box. We have one in the chat box. Lucky is asking, how many previous roles are ideal to include in a CV in a case you have more previous roles than can fit into a page or two?
Okay, so it depends on the role you're applying to. So if it's a very senior role, right, a very senior role that maybe requires 10 years of experience, you can definitely have 2 or 3 pages even. Well, maybe not so much, but maybe 2 pages, definitely 2 pages. But if it's an entry level role, if it's your first job or an associate role where you're expected to have just 1 or 2 years experience, as much as you can fit into 1 page. If it spills over, that can be fine. I don't think that is like a major hindrance or blockers when looking through. But if you can and it's entry level, please fit into 1 page just to be on the safe side. So yes.
All right, Lucky, I hope you've gotten your question answered. Okay, so a follow-up question to Lucky's question, right? How about a case where someone has multiple experiences, but in different fields? Say someone has worked in HR and then they did something in an NGO and then they did something that is totally not related to sales and then they've had some sales experience. As a hiring manager, do you want to see the experiences that are related to tech sales, related to sales, right? Or you don't mind seeing that teaching job that they did when they're in NYSC or one teaching thing that they did later on that really you cannot really connect to the role. What advice would you give to that?
Okay, thanks, Dara. So it might not be relevant if all of these other roles would drown out your actual sales experience, which the hiring manager is looking for. You can take some of that out. But if there are roles there that has skills that can be transferable into sales, I would advise you leave it there. But just ensure that it's not drowning out the major sales experience you want the hiring manager to see. Right? You do not have to put everything there, honestly. You do not have to put everything there, but ensure that what is there, um, it showcases skills or experiences that the hiring manager can find useful or relatable, or can put a better foot for you forward. So yes, you do not necessarily have to have everything.
All right. Thank you very much, Bridget. Uh, Before we go, are there any questions? Do people have any other questions you want to ask regarding hiring, regarding job applications, from a hiring manager's perspective? Are there questions that you'd like to ask that have not been answered already? If you have them, again, please raise up your hands or your virtual hands, or you could leave a comment in the chat box. And if there are none, then we can call it a night. All right, great. So I will take that as a no. Morire, you have a question, but it's not complete. Would you like to speak, or would you like us to give you some time to type out your
So
question? For
my question is that because I see a lot of people say you should do the job before applying. So I want to ask if that is something that she would like as an hiring manager, someone doing the job before they even get an interview. Like, sales now, sales is more of a prospecting, lead generations, scripting kind of thing. So someone can sell the product and then bring what they've done to the interview. Is that something we should be doing?
Bridget, do you understand the question?
I'm trying, but let me clarify. Are you speaking of practical experience in the same role before this application, or you're saying that the candidate should try to do something relating to the job so they can present during the application or interview stage?
No, no, no. Like, okay, let me use a product for example now. Let's say a software. They are looking to hire a sales developer. So if I'm applying to the role, rather than before applying, I should actually sell the product itself. Like, okay, I would sell the product, then I will create a document showing the scripts I used, the um the messaging I'm going to use to combat objections, my lead generation strategy, all those kind of things.
All right, but you can't actually sell the product if
Like,
you're
that
not,
is free work. Maria, clarify. Did I ask you to do free work?
if
Is it free work?
That's what some like people I follow on YouTube, that's what they say we should do. They said sell the products. Then when you come to the interview, you told them that I sold your product.
okay, that can be an angle. I'm not definitely not going to override that. Um, but I mean, if it's a requirement by the hiring manager, but if it's not, I mean, first off, if it's tech
Like,
sales,
sorry. They just say it shows your proactive nature that you are willing to do the job, that you are just someone that gets the job done. You don't need to be told what to do. You just know what to do. That interviewers like that kind of thing, or recruiters like it.
yeah, I understand that. So if it were, say, for example, a design role, if you go design something and come show maybe in your portfolio, that can, I mean, that can be okay. But for tech sales, I'm not sure how you're going to sell like a product which you do not even have access to. But yeah, anything that can show proactiveness, if it is you writing out like a script to show, um, or you looking at the products. I think Dara mentioned, downloading the application, looking at the product, maybe bringing out um, some something you think can be tweaked, or just thinking on how the product can be improved. That can also be okay. But regarding selling the product itself, well, while that can be an angle, I'm just trying to reconcile how you can sell a product without being in the business itself. What's anything that can push you forward? Of course, not make you look desperate, but anything that can show that, oh, you are very interested, you know their business, you know the role, you know the company in and out. Yes, I can encourage that.
All right, thank you very much, Bridget. Moriri, I hope you've gotten an answer to your question. Okay, great, great. So if there are no other questions, we can call it a night. Thank you everyone for your time. We have other sessions coming up during the week. We have a mentorship session on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, and we'll be talking about relationship management in that session. And then we have our virtual hangout, which is more or less like a virtual party, kind of. And then we'll be reviewing our Q1, everyone together. We'll talk about Q1, the things we did well, things that, we could have done better. And then, just talk to one another because we need it. I mean, sales is a lot. BD2 is a lot. So yeah, we need one another. We need that kind of atmosphere. So see you on Tuesday. See you on Thursday. Make sure you make it a date. Thank you everyone so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much, Bridget. We totally appreciate having you around. Thank you for your insights. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Thank you too. Thank you for having me. Good night.